Hi, so good afternoon. My name is Frank Yu. I'm the SE for Rubrik based here in lovely Sydney today. Glad to be down here at vForum AU. If you're around, I'm hoping you're enjoying yourself today. Today I wanted to try maybe a different way of presenting to the normal audiences that I present. I've actually been in the industry for probably close towards 15 years now. Dabbled a little bit on cloud technologies and automation and orchestration, whatnot, and I've actually learned quite a fair new technologies and ways of integrating products and automation and orchestrating different products together in your infrastructure or your IT environment. So I wanted to quickly talk a little bit about my experiences on how I actually got to know RESTful API and how I actually learned myself, or share my experiences and some of the examples, use cases on how to go and use RESTful API in the real world IT environment. So before I start talking about the examples or some of the different ways of integrating your API sets, typically what you find with people talking about API, everybody goes, whoa, we're going to become developers. Oh, now I've got to go and start learning how to code C++ or C# or Java or Ruby or Python. RESTful API is not necessarily about how to go and program better or how to become a developer in the end. It's all about being used or consumed by a lot of the web technology that's out there in the market. If you talk about AWS, or if you're talking about Azure, or if you're talking about as a service provider, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service, RESTful API is the basis of that. If you're using any of the automation tools or projects using Chef or Puppet or Ansible, Salt, or any of the cloud stack or OpenStack technology, again, RESTful API is the basis for it. And again, RESTful API is not necessarily a difficult API set to go and learn. It is quite easy to use. And yes, people are moving away from traditional CLIs where you have to go and install a specific package to be able to now go and run your backups, or you have to go and run your provisioning of servers. You have to go and modify your host name or change your IP address. So what is RESTful API then? Well, REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It actually got me a little bit of a sticker shock when I first heard that entire sentence. But what it really means is it's the language of the internet. It can be used both on HTTP as well as HTTP with SSL, which some people call it HTTPS in short. And what is API? Well, API is an application programmable interface. So what does it all mean when we say RESTful API? It means that we write in a legible format and the machines will do the rest for you, automatically talking to the RESTful API or the REST engine via either HTTP or HTTPS. To talk more about how we actually go and use RESTful API, we need to talk about the methods that are available. Now, it varies between different RESTful API providers. So CloudStack might have its own, vRealize Orchestrator has its own way of defining what methods are available. OpenStack has its own methods on what methods are definitely available there. But generally what we see as a standard, we'll see at least a get, we will see at least a put, and some sort of a delete as one of the basic methods that are available for RESTful API. So what do they mean? Well, let's start with something as easy as get. It is a safe method, it is a gnarly potent method as well. So as the word describes, retrieving or accessing a record is not going to modify any of the state of the data that has been stored within your service or within your machine, and that's what defines get. Then you also have the two other methods that are generally available, which is put and delete. These are called idempotent methods. It actually means that however many times you actually go and repeat that method, it'll yield the same result. So whether you're actually putting an item into, let's say, AWS or Azure or any of the cloud blob storages, or whether you're deleting that item, it'll still yield the same, either copying or writing that data into it, or deleting that data out of that object storage out of the cloud. Now, for us to be able to now go and use RESTful API with the methods that are available, we need some tools around it. Generally, any tools that you're comfortable with is going to do. If you're a Windows Pro user, you might be used to PowerShell. If you're a Unix guy, like myself, you might be used to more on curl or wget. If you're a guy who's a full developer or a scripter of some sort, you might be leveraging something like Ruby or Python or C# or Java. There are tons of different tools that are available that can leverage the RESTful API. You choose what platform you're comfortable with and you drive the processes as you need to. There are some inputs to the RESTful API. There are two main inputs that are used in general. XML, or the extensible markup language, is one of them. A lot of people tend to not use that these days because it is slightly older, clunkier, and of course there are different ways of putting parameters into the XML inputs. More people, or at least the general public these days, are using more or relying more on JSON, which is a JavaScript object notion. It's an interchangeable data format, meaning that you would write it as if you would read it, just like I would. So, and I'll give you some examples around it. And of course, JSON will then be parsed into a machine legible format where it can be read or generated for any of the new writes that are coming into your service. So as an example, if I take myself as a JSON format, my name is Frank Hu. My contact details may have two subsets, which obviously one of them would be an email, one of them a phone number. As you can see, my official company name email is there, and yes, unfortunately my name is Frank Hu. We take the first character of my first name and the last name together, so it's fu@rubrik.com. And of course I got my mobile number, 0423, yada, 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 yada. So that is a simple example of what JSON looks like. Of course, there's no limit to it. You can write as many different keys and values inside a JSON file or even a string. And here are some of the examples that we can go and run in a normal shell script environment. So I'm actually going to go and search for my virtual machine in my vCenter environment, and with the latest information in vCenter 6.5. Now you have the capability of running all the RESTful API commands whenever you want to. If I go and do a get to get some information about my virtual machine, now it returns a JSON output of the ID of that virtual machine, which host is currently sitting on, the MOID within vCenter, as well as the name and the status of that virtual machine, which obviously in this case has been powered on. Another example might be, I want to go rename my virtual machine from se-fu-linux to now se-fu-red hat. I can go and create or construct a command that allows you to now simply plug in a JSON string into it and give it the direct HTTPS address, and now get an output saying a status is 0, which usually means, hey, I've been successful, I've been able to go and rename the virtual machine. And it also gives me the result of the new virtual machine name, which obviously in this case it is the se-fu-red hat. The third example I'm going to show you here, and a lot of people might be used to Chrome, or they could be used to Safari, they could be used to Firefox, and there are multiple plugins that are available for you to go and use if you wanted to, should you wish to go and use a UI, such as Postman, or even if you're on a Mac, there is a Cocoa Mac REST application as well. But in this example, I'm using Swagger UI. All I have to do is go and click on the actual API that I want to go and use, construct my JSON format if it is a post, for instance. If it's a get, you might be passing a query into it instead. And of course, then I go and hit run, and it gives me an instant result in, again, a JSON format that is legible to us for us to be able to easily go and pass that through our own eyes. So, what is the net conclusion out of it? My experience has been, don't be afraid. Look, I'm not a full-time developer, I'm not a commercial developer. In fact, I do script a lot, but apart from that, I've never been working in the development arena within the IT sector. So don't be afraid to go and write JSON format. Even if you get it wrong, there are resources that are available for you to be able to double check that your JSON format and your queries are correct. When in doubt, start with get. Again, get is the non-intrusive, put and delete are the intrusive commands. If you feel like you want to try out and see what it looks like first, double check with get before you start using any of the puts or deletes or post commands that are available. And there are multiple resources that are available in the web that helps you or guides you along the journey of learning how to use RESTful API. Namely, the JSON tutorials that are available. The JQ processor is actually one of the tools that I use because I am a Linux person and a bit of a Macintosh person as well. Again, we do have a GitHub available. Chris Wall actually maintains it for our company for any of the data management RESTful API calls that you'd like to go and use. And again, JSONAPI.org is available for you to be able to go and learn more to become a ninja in utilizing RESTful API. I hope that was well worthy of a 101 into RESTful API, as well as the different formats of inputs and why RESTful API is becoming the norm in the web scale industry. Thank you for your time.